What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Ring the Bell Philly Show, presented as always by SeatGeek. I am your host, Christy Francesco. Hope everybody has been doing well. I know outside of me doing the Hot Tag show here every week, covering the Monday Night Wars in order. I haven't really done much baseball except for the first two in this series that I'm doing. I apologize for the a few week layoff. It's just been my work schedule's just been a little bit wild to say the least, and plus it's the holidays and with the kiddos and my wife and I are just all over the place, just trying to get things obviously handled before the big guy in the red suit makes his way over here. So we're just trying to get everything handled. So yeah, this week we are going to be covering baseballs who I believe are the top 10 best first basemen in Major League Baseball of the 1990s. So we've already done best outfielders of the 90s, the best starting pitchers of the 90s, and now we're up to the best first baseman. So we're in the infield now. Probably going to do maybe a top 5 or 7 second baseman. There's not too many second basemen, but I'll see. In my research, I'll look over it. But we do have some Phillies news to talk about, as this just happened. The Phillies announced that they've signed Jose Ruiz and Garrett Stubbs to 1-year deals for the 2025 season, which is great. That's just another year with a crappy backup catcher for JT Realmuto. So more of the same. Bryson Stott and Mundo Sosa, Brandon Marsh, Alec Bohm, and Ranger Suarez had their contracts tendered as expected. Austin Hayes was the only non-tendered player on the roster. So just another gem of a deadline trade player for Dave Dombrowski. Sorry, I'm just making sure I read that correctly. So yeah, so Garrett Stubbs is returning as a backup catcher. That's I mean, look, I can't go around Major League Baseball at the top of my head right now and see who's a better replacement, but I'm pretty certain there's a lot of better replacements from a backup catcher standpoint for the Phillies this year than Garrett Stubbs. Great guy, obviously. He's their hype man, but I don't want a hype man being my backup catcher. JT Realmuto is 33 years old. He's got to stop starting 130 plus games every single season, because it's very clear. It was very clear at the end of this past season that the guy's body just failed him. He can't catch 130 to 140 games anymore. He was a non-existent player the last couple months. And of course, the very limited time that we saw him in the playoffs, he was just inefficient, and he can't hit. He cannot hit. Defensively, he's still there. But I think at 33, starting this many games is starting to really affect him from an offensive standpoint. And having a guy like Garrett Stubbs doesn't make that any better. Because I mean, look, I'm not a pro baseball player, but from analyzing it from afar, I don't think Garrett Stubbs is a major league player. But Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies once again think otherwise. Alec Bohm, all the other ones are pretty much expected. Stott, Sosa, Bohm, Brandon Marsh, Ranger. However, what did come out earlier today, I think per John Heyman, I know Buster Olney was talking about it. Alec Bohm, Nick Castellanos, Ranger Suarez now are guys that are going to be that are being talked about in trade talks if they pop up. So that's something to very much pay attention to. What the Phillies are going to do this offseason. Buster Olney believes that he was on WIP radio, I think yesterday. If I'm wrong, my days just bleed into another. He believes the Phillies are going to get a star or two. Who that's going to be, I don't know. The last time I talked to you guys from a baseball perspective, I really thought the Phillies were going to be the team to land Juan Soto. My opinion has changed as I've gathered new information and I've heard and read from certain people. Todd Zalecki, who covers the Phillies, has covered the Phillies forever for MLB.com. He kind of broke it down in one of his articles. You can go catch it on the Phillies website, I'm sure if you just look for it. Zielecki kind of broke it down from a financial standpoint, how Juan Soto kind of makes no sense. Look, if Soto would come in here, and I don't know what day he's meeting with the Phillies, but I know he is. There is a meeting scheduled, and I guess it's going to be coming up soon, probably sometime early next week before the holiday. Obviously, if Juan Soto would be willing to accept, maybe half or a quarter of his contract to be deferred, then you could probably have an idea that, there's a chance that Soto could be a Philly. But I just financially, it just does not work for the Phillies. It just doesn't. I think the Mets, the rumor that their owner, Cohen, has already said, or has hinted at least, and this is allegedly, has hinted that whatever the top offer is from a team, he's going to up it by 50 million. He's got that money. He can do whatever he wants. I think he's the richest owner in the league, so he can do whatever he wants. And I said this 3 or 4 months ago before I put on, rose-colored glasses for a couple weeks about Soto because I was hopeful. But I hate Dean so much. That there was just no chance. I thought it was going to be the Mets from the start. I've thought the Mets for 6 to 8 months now that the Mets were going to be the team to get Soto. I think it's going to go down between the Yankees and the Mets. I think the Yankees realize what they have to do. If I had to guess right now, I think it's still going to be the Mets because Juan Soto's a mercenary. He's a mercenary for hire. All the power to him. He wants that mega deal. He wants this last deal of his career. Some players get 2. Most players only get really 1 big deal, and he wants to get his now. So you're talking about a 12 to 15 year deal. Anywhere between $580 and $625 million. I think the Yankees and the Mets are going to battle for it. Who wins out? I still think the Mets because I think they're going to offer more. And he's a mercenary for hire, and I think he's going to take the highest bidder. I think the Phillies are going to probably make an offer just for the mere fact of, hey, here's our offer. I could definitely see the Phillies offering him, over $500 million. I don't see them going maybe that 15-year mark, maybe 12 to 13. Look, the fact of the matter is the Phillies have so much money wrapped up in payroll. I think Middleton's already in that second or third level, maybe that second level of the luxury tax going into this season. If he signs on a guy like Soto, you're talking about the 4th level of luxury tax. And this is the same owner who's already gone in public and said, look, he had to bring on new ownership. New people into ownership to help pay for the cost that the monies that they lost during COVID. And that's been a few years already. So I don't believe the Phillies are steadfast in the running for Juan Soto. I do, however, believe the Phillies are in the running for Alex Bregman. I do believe. I'm not gonna go down the road of thinking that the reports that Bregman wants 11-year deal is anything serious. I just don't see a singular team offering that guy more than 7 or 8 years at 31 years old. I would have no problems whatsoever if the Phillies want to give Alex Bregman like a 5-year deal worth like $170 million. I could care. The money amount means nothing to me. Baseball doesn't have a cap. It is what it is. It's the years. And, a guy like Soto, you're paying $625-50 million. That's a lot of money over a span of, 14, 15 years. That hurts. But I would love Alex Bregman on a 4 to 5 year deal. Anything more than 5, I'm kind of out. Unless you're Juan Soto's age, I'm pretty much out on any contract over 5 or 6 years. I know that's unrealistic, but that's just me. Proof is in the pudding. When a Major League Baseball player's prime historically is between the ages of 26 and probably 32 to 34. So you get a pretty good 6 to 8 year stretch where that player is in his physical peak. You got Bryce Harper, who's probably got a good maybe 2 to 3 years left if he's healthy in terms of that really good prime. Obviously Soto probably has 10 years with the kind of player that he is. He doesn't have a huge history of injuries. So Soto probably has a longer prime from, being 26. And so that's the thing. But I know the Phillies are going to be in on Bregman. They're going to be on other players. I don't know this whole thing about Alec Boehm and him being on the trade market, which I do believe. But I'm starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, this is like a smoke and mirrors type thing. It's more of throwing Alec Boehm out there for bait to see if a team comes forward and makes them a really big offer. Yeah, that's right. We have Garrett Stubbs. We're good. No problems whatsoever. Because trading Alec Boehm, if you're not going to get an Alec Bregman or if Bregman's not on your radar, I can't see getting rid of Alec Boehm as a viable option right now. I don't think Aiden Miller is ready. He's probably got like another year or so before he's ready to take over the reins. Alec Boehm is 28 years old. He got 2 years left of team control, making pennies on the dollar. He just started the All-Star game at third base. I just don't. Again, unless you get a ace type pitcher in return, or you definitely are going out there to sign a Bregman, there is no reason for the Phillies to even entertain the idea of not having an Alec Boehm. I know he's not having a pretty good time here right now, especially with the last month or so of the season. Was just horrid. But as bad as he was that last month or so of the season, he still ended the season hitting 280. And he still had that wrist issue, which we also don't know how long that lingered into, September and early October. But nonetheless, a lot of things coming down the pike here for the Phillies. The winter meetings are about 2 weeks away. So that's going to be a big deal. That's where you're going to see signings start to happen. You're going to see trade offers, just a lot coming down the pike for the Phillies. So I hope everybody is prepared for that. All right. So before we get into our main topic of today, which is baseball's best first baseman of the 1990s, just want to let everybody know, head over to SeatGeek.com, use our code Ring the Bell for $20 off your very first ticket purchase. Hey, look, the Sixers are absolutely embarrassing right now. I mean, they are a absolute trash can of an organization. You can get over to SeatGeek right now, probably get tickets pretty inexpensive. That $20 off could get you some pretty decent seats at a banger of a price, because they suck. So you can just probably walk in there right now and have, pretty good seats through SeatGeek using our code Ring the Bell. All right, here we go. So again, it's like a labor of love thing that I wanted to do this series, because I'm a huge fan of baseball history. It's something that, man, I've paid attention to since I was, 5 years old. I used to get baseball almanacs as gifts. That was what I wanted. I would just read those suckers, right? I'm terrible at math and forever. But, you put, baseball statistics, like from Baseball Reference, which is where I got all of my info tonight. I can read them. I can completely do the numbers. I can do the breakdowns, the equations, but put me in like an algebra 1 class, and I was terrible. I don't know how that works, but who knows? But we are here. So let's I do want to just say something really quick. There's 2 names that you're not going to see on this list, and you're going to think I'm crazy. The first one is Jim Thome. So I wanted to put Jim Thome on the list. However, if you look at Jim Thome's career and you go back through the 90s, which was, the height of his career, Jim Thome did not become a starting first baseman, I believe, until around 1997. So let me just do that really quick. Yes. So 1997 was the first year Jim Thome became a first. He was a third baseman from 1991 through 1996. So that's a big chunk of the decade that Jim Thome did not play first base. Otherwise, obviously, Jim Thome would be in my top 10. The other guy is another dude who was just an absolute stud in the 90s, was Carlos Delgado. I didn't put him on this list because he really did not become a full-time starter at first base until 1996. Now, obviously, from 96 to 1999, I mean, his numbers were incredible. Just a superstar of a player for the back end of the 1990s. So he's not on my list either. So I apologize if anybody freaks out and says, why is Carlos Delgado and Jim Thome not on your list? Jim Thome did not become a first baseman until 1997. So I can't put a guy on there compared to the others who played the majority of the decade at first base. So let's get things started, shall we? Coming in at number 10 for me is one of the best first basemen of the 1990s is Andres Galarraga. One of the coolest batting stances. I love watching it. The dude was a beast. So let's kind of go over, as always, I'm going to go over their slash, what they did in that decade, and just give you guys a little bit of info. Again, all of my statistics and information come from baseballreference.com. Look, I live on that site a lot, so I definitely recommend that, even if it's football, if it's hockey, if it's basketball. The reference, they do the immaculate grid that I do every day. So yeah, that's the place to go. It's like the digital baseball almanac. It's incredible. It's the best. So here we go. Andres Galarraga in the 1990s, a slash of 293, 349, 524, a 120 OPS plus, 255 home runs, 860 RBIs, and a 20 WAR. He was already 8 seasons into his Major League Baseball career when he joined the Colorado Rockies, when they were the expansion team in that 92-93 season. At that point, he was already 267 hitter with 320 home run seasons and a pair of Gold Gloves already on his resume. And look, he was a really good addition to this franchise, to the Colorado Rockies franchise. But he was entering his age 32 season when he got to the Rockies. And you would think, okay, well, he's definitely on the back end of his career. Not how it worked for Andres. He hit 370, 403, 602 with 22 home runs and 98 RBIs in his first season with the Rockies, claiming the NL batting title in the process, and that's just the start. During a 6-year span from 1993 through 1998, he posted a 131 OPS plus and averaged 36 home runs, 117 RBIs, finishing in the top 10 in NL MVP voting 5 times. He also led the National League in home runs and RBIs during the 1996 season. He had 47 home runs and clubbed 150 RBIs. Insane. The dude was also just a monster presence. His nickname, which I love, is the Big Cat. He was 6'3", 235. The dude was a tight end playing baseball. And he was the heart of those lethal Rocky lineups, man. Remember those Rocky lineups in the 90s? Vinny Castillo, Dante Bichette, Andres Galarraga, just so much fun. I mean, that team was a lot of fun to pay attention to in those 90s. Just imagine if they were able to just Larry Walker too. How the hell do I forget Larry Walker from that team? But yeah, Andres Galarraga is my number 10. Just such a good player. He was a lot of fun. I always loved saying his name. I always used to love hearing turning on Sports Center, and Rich Eisen and Stuart Scott would say his name, and they would just emphasize it so well. So I was a big fan. All right, my number 9. Sometimes I think people forget this guy. I really do. It's wild how you don't hear him often, but when you dig deep, dude was a baller. Mark Grace. His slash was 310. 385, 449, 122 OPS plus, 117 home runs, 786 RBIs, a 36 WAR. And again, he gets lost in the shuffle. and it's, I think it's because when you look at the position of first base in the 90s, it's a position that is so loaded with sluggers that this guy just kind of gets lost in there, right? But if you look at the hit leaders in the 1990s, he had, from a first baseman standpoint, he had the most hits in the 1990s, and I'm going to get to that. He was a significant offensive threat. He had that smooth, just straightforward swing, a short stroke. It was very contact-driven approach. The dude just didn't get hurt. His durability in the 90s was incredible. So if you look at the hit leaders of the 1990s, this isn't just first base, ladies and gentlemen. This is all positions. Every player in Major League Baseball. Here's the hit leaders of the 1990s. Mark Grace is number one, 1,754 hits. Rafi Palmeiro, second, 1,747. Craig Biggio, one of my all-time favorites, 1,728. The legendary Tony Gwynn is fourth on this list, 1,713. And then Roberto Alomar, another, unspoken, forgotten guy, 1,678. But the reason why, again, I say it's just he gets lost in that shuffle because he never hit more than 17 home runs in a season. In terms of his batting average, like I said, obviously with these hits, his 310 batting average was good for eighth among players with at least 3,000 plate appearances during the 1990s. Let's not also forget, which I take into account, he's a four-time Gold Glove winner. And, that's pretty damn good. I value defense. My favorite baseball player, my favorite sports athlete ever is Ken Griffey Jr., who's the greatest, fielding center fielder of all time. So I take defense into high regard. And Mark Grace was a really good fielding first baseman. And he also had that really tall order in 1998 where he was protecting Sammy Sosa in the lineup during his 66 homer season. So he was a dude, man. Mark Grace was a dude, and he's number 9 on my list. Number 8 is a guy that I've watched. I used to watch him all the time because he was a Mariner, obviously, for a long time. And then he really showcased with the Yankees, and that's Tino Martinez. God, I used to love watching Tino. He might be pretty high on my list compared to other lists that I've seen him. I've seen him like number 10. I've seen him number 13 on other lists, but I put him right where I am at number 8, and I think that's fair. So let's kind of go over his numbers for the 90s. 275, 347, 486, 116 OPS plus, 213 home runs, 798 RBIs, and a 20 WAR. 3-time World Series winner. Again, he's just another player that he's tasked with filling some mega shoes. People forget this, man. Tino Martinez was acquired by the Yankees just prior to that 96 season to replace who? The retiring Don Mattingly. So Tino's being brought in after having a pretty decent career with the Seattle Mariners. Tito's coming in replacing Donnie Baseball. But at the end of the trade, Martinez is fresh off the best year of his 6-year career. He posted a 135 OPS plus with 31 home runs and 111 RBIs to earn his first All-Star selection during that 95 season. In his first 4 years with the Yankees to close out the 90s, he averaged 30 doubles, 31 RBIs, 131 home runs, 122 RBIs, while posting a 120 OPS plus and a 12.6 WAR. And then he was also just a great playoff performer. He was part of that 3-time World Series championship team for that dynasty with the Yankees during that 4-year span. He finished runner-up in the AL MVP voting in 1997 when he hit 296, 371, 577, a 143 OPS plus. My goodness, 44 home runs and 141 RBIs. I mean, you talk about, one of the best trades of that era. He's replacing a retiring Don Mattingly, and this dude just went off. Just an incredible player for the Yankees. It was a perfect trade at the right place at the right time for the Yankees. They were saying goodbye to an icon, but boy, man, they you talk about going out there, getting a player that you're hoping can at least partially fill the shoes of a legend. Tino did that, if not better. And he was also just a very good fielding first baseman as well. I want to go see if he won a Gold Glove. I forget. I didn't write that down for some reason. No, he did not. He never won a Gold Glove. So there's that. But I thought he was a decent first baseman. He wasn't a hindrance whatsoever. So yeah, my number 7, and again, just another power hitter here, which again, not to harp on Mark Grace, but this is why guys like Mark Grace get pushed to the background, because my number 7, Mo Vaughn. Look, you talk about a presence at the plate and a batting stance. My goodness gracious. But Mo Vaughn, beast. And we're going to get into it. 301, 390, 538, 138 OPS plus, 263 home runs, 860 RBIs, nearly a 27 WAR. Dude, he was one of the most productive sluggers in baseball, and he was the face of that Red Sox lineup during the 1990s. He and like Nomar Garciaparra later on, one of my all-time favorite players. Mo Vaughn was just a monster. In his 7 full seasons during the 90s, he posted a 144 OPS plus, and he averaged 35 and 110. And that includes his numbers during the strike-shortened 1994 season. A monster. He won AL MVP honors in 95 when he hit 300 with 39 home runs and an AL leading 126 RBIs. He finished in the top 5 in voting 2 other times while earning 3 All-Star selections. He went to the Anaheim Angels in 1990, just prior to the 1999 season, on a 6-year, $80 million deal. And before injuries really just completely ended his career and just derailed him, he did post 115 OPS plus with 36 home runs and 117 ribbies in his first season with the team, and then that was it. But, at his peak, Mo Vaughn was as feared probably as any middle-of-the-order threat in baseball. Mo Vaughn was like must-watch. Just if he has highlights on YouTube, which I'm sure he does, just watch it. It was his batting stance. His swing was so pretty. And when he made contact on a homer ball, game over, man. All right. My number 6 is another guy like a Mark Grace, a dude that could flat out hit, but was also a tremendous defensive first baseman. So I put him at number 6, John Olerud. People remember Olerud as the guy that, always wore that helmet, even defensively, but my man could hit. So let's get into it. 301, 406, a 406 OBP, 482 slugging, 134 OPS plus, 172 homers, 762 ribbies, and a 40 WAR. His postseason, he's a 2-time World Series winner with Toronto Blue Jays. I'm not going to get into that. His postseason numbers, 304, 386, 442, 5 home runs, 24 RBIs. Dude was a baller in the postseason. When the Blue Jays traded Fred McGriff and Tony Fernandez to the San Diego Padres in exchange for Roberto Alomar and Joe Carter prior to the 91 season. My God, what a friggin' trade. The names in there. It was a deal that was made possible because of John Olerud. He was a 3rd-round pick in 89 after one of the most productive college careers ever, if you guys want to look that up. Just a monster. He jumped straight to the majors after signing and served as Toronto's starting designated hitter in his age 21 season in 1990. And, that presence of that guy, man, no doubt helped the front office come to terms with the idea that it's okay to trade a future Hall of Fame slugger like Fred McGriff, who we'll talk about soon. There's a little spoiler there. Olerud didn't have the same power, but he effectively replaced the offensive production in other ways. And to that point, there were just 10 seasons during the 1990s of a player that hitting at least 350, 440, and 550 while qualifying for the batting title. Frank Thomas did it once. Jeff Bagwell did it once. John Olerud was the only first baseman to do it twice. His best season came in 93. We all know how that ended. When he led the AL in batting average, 363, a 473 on-base percentage, 1,072 OPS, and a 184 OPS plus, and he hit 54 doubles. He was an 8 WAR player and finished third in AL MVP voting. Are you kidding me? But yeah, this is not a dude that you want to, F with in terms of a resume. John Olerud was a stud. Just go back and just look at those numbers. He's a stud. John Olerud was a man. All right, so to review before we get to the top 5, here we go. My number 10. Again, my honorable mentions. Again, Jim Thome. Couldn't put him in this list. He did not become a starting first baseman until the 1997 season. From 91 to 96, he was a starting third baseman. I couldn't put him there, and that hurt me. Thome's probably in my top 10 of favorite baseball players ever. That hurt me, but I had to be fair. Carlos Delgado did not become really a full-time player until 1996, 97. So although the last 3 or 4 seasons of the 90s, Delgado got it. He was a stud. Just couldn't do it. That's a full 6 years of the decade where he wasn't there. Number 10 was Andres Galarraga. Number 9, Mark Grace. Number 8, Tino Martinez. Number 7, Mo Vaughn. Number 6, John Olerud. And the guy he replaced coming in at number 5, a player that I loved in the 90s, even though he was a Brave. And in the 90s, I hated the Braves because they were just so damn good. And they would just destroy the Phillies for years. The crime dog, Fred McGriff, who took his rightful place in the Hall of Fame, like 2 years ago, maybe. But let's talk about, Mr. Fred McGriff here. 291, 381, 514, a 135 OPS plus, 300 home runs, 975 RBIs in the decade. He was almost a Hall of Famer just from the 90s, man. 300 homers and almost 1,000 ribbies. Come on. And then let's look at his postseason numbers. Look at these numbers. A one-time World Series winner, Atlanta Braves, 323, 411, 581 slugging in the postseason, 10 home runs, 34 RBIs, insane numbers. Look, in that 90s, man, he was always that consistent, that constant. He was a constant, middle of the order presence. He spent time, obviously, with the Blue Jays, the Padres, and then really hit everything. He hit that Hall of Fame ground running in Atlanta, and then wrapped up his career with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, averaging 30 home runs and 98 RBIs per season. The Braves acquired him from the Padres at the 1993 deadline, and he hit, it's just a stud. He hit 310, 392, 612 for a 165 OPS plus with 19 home runs and 55 ribbies in 68 games following that trade. He recorded 130 home runs and made 3 All-Star appearances in parts of 5 seasons with Atlanta, helping launch that perennial contender. They won 14 consecutive division titles from 91 to 2005. Just insane, that run in the NL East for the Braves. Then he went to the Tampa Bay Devil Rays as an expansion team here. Their inaugural season was in 1998. The following year, he had a season that still stands as probably one of the most productive in Rays franchise history. 310, 405, 552 slash 30 doubles, 32 homers, and 104 RBIs. His 300 homers, like I mentioned earlier, during that decade is tied for 10th, among all players in that time period. Just a great, great player. I'm just a huge, huge Crime Dog fan. So happy he made the Hall of Fame finally. All right, so number 4. This is a dude whose name has been basically erased from discussion of anything. Well, I got to take a swig of water for the working man here. My number 4 is Rafi Palmeiro, a mutant of a hitter. Let's just get into this. Here's his slash: 299, 375, 534, a 140 OPS plus, 328 home runs, 1,068 RBIs, and a 50 WAR in the decade. Are you kidding? He developed into one of the most prolific sluggers in baseball as the 1990s progressed. Whether he did that naturally or not, I don't care. he had 122 home runs from 1990 through 1994 with a 138 OPS plus an average, 41 and 125 over the final 5 seasons of the decade. He won a pair of Silver Slugger awards and obviously a pair of All-Star nods. He spent 9 seasons of at least a 4 WAR during the decade while playing with the Texas Rangers and the Orioles, and also received MVP votes 9 different times. He played alongside of Pudge Rodriguez, Juan Gon, Jose Canseco, Dean Palmer, Julio Franco. I mean, he was part of a incredible lineup in those 90s with the Texas Rangers. It's just a shame. Again, just another one of those sluggers who was on a team that they couldn't pitch. I mean, the Rangers were just so good in that time period. Juan Gonzalez, who we talked about when I did the best outfielders of the 90s. I mean, Juan Gonzalez was just a superstar. Just a superstar in the 90s. So yeah, Rafi Palmeiro is a guy that you won't hear anymore. He's a guy that's got over 3,000 hits. Let me go pull him up real quick. His numbers are insane. He's got 569 home runs, a 290 career hitter, 3,020 hits, a career on-base percentage of 371, 1,835 RBIs, and he just doesn't get talked about. And it's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace that Rafael Palmeiro doesn't get brought up as often as he should. Because, one, he should have his own bust in Canton. That's for damn sure. So, bring up all you want. I really don't care what he may have done. 3-time Gold Glover, 2-time Silver Slugger, 569 home runs, 3,020 hits, and he's just not in the Hall of Fame. It's a joke. The National Baseball writers are a joke, and they always will be until they do what's right. And they know what that is. If they want to continue to be assholes, they'll be assholes. They're hurting the game by not acknowledging these dudes in the 90s, and it's disgusting. My number 3 is probably one of the top 3, probably one of the top 3 most impactful players of not only the decade, but maybe of baseball ever for what this guy helped do. My number 3 is Mark McGwire. Listen, we all know the 94 strike. I mean, that hurt baseball for so long. Going into that 1998 season, man, I mean, baseball was deader than Kelsey's nuts, and it was hard. Ratings were at an all-time low. Attendance was terrible. It was just bad. They were still feeling the effects of that strike in 94, where they lost the World Series. They lost over half a season. It was bad. I mean, it drove obviously millions and millions of people away from the sport. And then 1998 occurred, and 3 guys, the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Ken Griffey Jr. in 1998, saved baseball. And, there's no other way around it. And, people can say what they want. Those 3 dudes, man, they helped save the game of baseball in 1998. And, not to take anything away from anybody else, but the whole world was focusing on Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and Ken Griffey Jr. in 1998 on who was going after Roger Maris's record of that era. And what we saw that year was just insane. Griffey hit 56. Obviously, we know what Sammy Sosa did. He hit what that year? What did he hit in 98? He hit 66, right? Yeah. And Mark McGwire in 1998 just set the world on fire with 70 home runs. It was unbelievable, man. And it was just like following Barry Bonds in 2001, the year he hit 73. Whether you knew McGwire was juicing or not, your eyes were glued. If the Cardinals were on TV, you didn't have plans that night. In like August and September, when that race was going on at the end of summer, and I remember this vividly, if the Cubs or the Cardinals were on TV in 1998, you didn't have plans. You watched Mark McGwire or you watched Sammy Sosa. And when you would watch SportsCenter, if you were in an area or if you just didn't get Cardinals or Cubs games, you would watch ESPN for break-ins to go. And they got to a point where every at bat for these two, ESPN was going to that game to just so we could watch the at bat. And it was awesome. I mean, it was so cool, man. Baseball up until that point had just been an afterthought in America, but not in 1998, not because of a guy like this and a guy like Sammy and Griffey, just the impact that they had on baseball, the sport, to help bring the game back to where it was in 1998 is in the annals of time. There's been documentaries made about it. There's been books written about it. It's still talked about today as possibly one of the most impactful seasons in the sports history. Is just awesome. But let's go over just McGwire's numbers because they are gaudy. 268, 411, 615, 173 OPS plus, which is disgusting. 405 home runs in the decade for McGwire. 405. 956 RBIs, a 46.4 WAR. If it weren't from 93 to 95, from 93, 4, 5, that's 3 seasons. Mark McGwire played just 178 games. If it was not for that stretch, you're probably obviously talking about the best player at first base of the decade. He had that monster rookie year, 49 home runs. And then in 1992, he had 42 home runs when he led the AL in the OPS plus and slugging. He was already well established as one of, if not the biggest power threats in the game. And then the second half of the 1990s, man, he took after the record books. Like that was his prime focus. After a 52 home run season in 1996, he launched another 58 in 1997, including 24 homers in 51 games with the St. Louis Cardinals following that midseason trade from the A's. And then what followed that, man, a record-breaking 70 home run season where he led the league. I don't even want to say the SOPS plus number, 216, and 162 walks, an on-base percentage of 470. Just for good measure, he also led the NL in home runs and RBIs again in 1999, 65 homers and 147 RBIs. But all told, Big Mac, who's still one of the coolest nicknames, led the majors with 405 home runs during that decade, 8 All-Star nods, finishing in the top 10 in MVP voting 4 different times. The importance of Mark McGwire can't be unstated. He deserves better. He should be in the Hall of Fame, and he's not. And obviously we know why, but it's a joke. Hopefully one day this changes when maybe some of the voters who refuse to do this kind of stuff and do what's right, maybe they leave in a way I can say leave maybe. But yeah, that my number 3 is Big Mac, Mark McGwire. So we're the final 2 here. And these are 2 studs. When you see what Mark McGwire did, the fact that there's 2 guys that are better, there are. All right, my number 2, Jeff Bagwell. God, like one of the coolest, batting stances in baseball history. But the dude was also just a mutant at the plate. He was a great fielding first baseman, just a stud. Here's his slash: 304, 416, 545, a 160 OPS plus, 263 home runs, 961 RBIs, and a 57 WAR. He was acquired in probably one of the most lopsided trades in Major League Baseball history. Bagwell, he just bursted onto the scene for the Houston Astros in 1991 when he hit 294, 387, 437 slash with 15 home runs and 82 RBIs to win the AL Rookie of the Year honors. 3 years later, Bagwell's adding an NL MVP to his resume where he hit 368, 451, 750 slash for a 213 OPS plus with 39 home runs and an AL leading 116 RBIs in 110 games. Insane, man. People forget prime Jeff Bagwell. Then he went on to post a pair of 30-30 seasons in 97. Yes, the dude, the big boy could steal. 43 home runs, 31 stolen bases. And then in 1999, 42 home runs, 30 stolen bases. Just, it's an incredibly rare feat for a first baseman. The only other player in Major League Baseball to do it while playing primarily first base was Joe Carter in 87, where he went 32 and 31. Incredible. And then another great stat here, his .416 on-base percentage for the decade, cumulative, trailed only Barry Bonds and Edgar Martinez among players with at least 3,000 plate appearances. Tell you what, man, it might be a long time before we see another first baseman with a combination of power, speed, and on-base ability like that dude. Even Freddie Freeman in his prime now. Bryce is at first base, but still, Matt Olson, he doesn't move, but that's what I'm saying. Like all that combo, that trifecta that dude had. Jeff Bagwell was a monster. I mean, I used to love watching Jeff Bagwell. Him and BGO are, I just loved watching them growing up. I used to love when they would show Bagwell at the plate, and he had, I still don't understand what the hell it was, but he would have his batting gloves, right? And on top of his batting gloves, it looked like it was like another shelf, like a box, like a big square box that was on the front of his glove. I wish I could pull up a picture of it. But I can't. But yeah, Jeff Bagwell, number 2, as great as McGwire was from a cumulative standpoint. Bagwell, I mean, 1 and 2. I mean, the fact that he's not 1 means our number 1 is a monster. Our number 1. So here we are. My number 1, the best first baseman in Major League Baseball of the 1990s is the Big Hurt, Frank Thomas. One of my top 5 favorite baseball players of all time, but that's irrelevant because I'm going to go over his numbers and you'll realize why he's, the GOAT at first base. His slash, 320, 440, 573, a 170 OPS plus, 301 home runs, 1,040 RBIs, and a 53 WAR. Incredible. So here's how I look at this. If Ken Griffey Jr. is not the face of baseball during the 1990s, Frank Thomas was probably a close second. He's at, same draft. I'm sorry, he was 2 years later than Griffey, but still 2 years later, 89 draft, number 7 overall pick. He debuted in 1990, where in 60 games, he slashed 330, 454, 529 with 7 home runs and 31 RBIs in 60 games. That was followed by a 7-year stretch that only few hitters in Major League Baseball history can rival. So let me just break this down. From 1991 through the 1997 season, Frank Thomas slashed 330, 452, 604, and a 182 OPS plus, while averaging 34 doubles, 36 home runs, 118 RBIs, and a 6.4 WAR. 93, 94, he won back-to-back AL MVP awards. He won the AL batting title in 1997 when he hit 347 with 35 home runs and 125 RBIs, where he accomplished a career-high 7.3 WAR. There's a strong case to be made. I know this is tough to say because I might put Albert Pujols in this spot here. There's a strong case to be made that Frank Thomas at his very peak was the greatest right-handed hitter in baseball history. And that alone makes him the number 1. I do believe that there was, Albert Pujols is the only other guy that I can think of that in like a decade stretch was the most dominant first baseman ever. But as an overall just a right-handed hitter, not just a first baseman, Frank Thomas is one of the greatest to ever play. I mean, he's one of the greatest to ever play Major League Baseball. And there's just no doubt even if I was doing best first baseman of like the modern era, I guess I would only put Pujols over Frank Thomas. I'm gonna have to go over that again, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna put Albert Pujols over Frank Thomas. But I mean, it's you. If you'd say to me, I'm gonna put Frank Thomas over Albert Pujols, I don't think I'm gonna argue it. I'd say, well, I mean, that's that. I don't know. I mean, what Pujols did in a decade. Let me go. While I have you guys on here, let me go check out Albert Pujols real quick. Let me just look at his first decade, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. His first 10 years in the league. Yeah, I mean, just looking at it now before even popping it up, I mean, Albert Pujols is the greatest right-handed hitter of all time. I mean, he had wars in a row. This is his war from 2005. I'm sorry, Albert Pujols' war from 2003, which was his third year in the league, to 2010. So actually, I gotta do 2010. It's first 10 years. 8.7, 8.5, 8.4, 8.5, 8.7, 9.2, 9.7, 7.5. 3 MVPs, rookie of the year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 silver sluggers, a gold glove. Yeah, I mean, Albert Pujols is the greatest right-handed hitter of all time. Frank Thomas would probably maybe be number 2 there. If his career would have continued, Mike Trout would have been there too. But yeah, that's my top 10. Let's just go over one more time. Honorable mentions: Carlos Delgado, Jim Thome. Just didn't have enough time at that position in the 90s to make my top 10. Andres Galarraga at 10. Mark Grace at 9. Tino Martinez at 8. Mo Vaughn 7. John Olerud 6. The Crime Dog, Fred McGriff at 5. Rafael Palmeiro 4. McGuire 3. Jeff Bagwell 2. And the Big Hurt, Frank Thomas, is, in my opinion, according to the Ring the Bell host and creator, Christy Francesco, the Big Hurt, Frank Thomas, was Major League Baseball's best first baseman of the 1990s. So that wraps this up here. Thank you guys so very much. If you are watching on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, ring that bell for notifications when we go live. Again, if you're following this on Twitter, do the same thing. Just click on just get to YouTube and do all that. Follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at ChrisDFran1. Again, thank you guys so very much for the support. Looking forward to baseball news really picking up here, ramping up as we get towards the winter meetings. It's already Friday, November 22nd. So these things are coming up fast. Thank you guys very much again. Head over to SeatGeek.com. Use our code Ring the Bell for $20 off your very first ticket purchase. All right, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I probably will not talk to you next week. It's Thanksgiving. It's a big holiday week. It's my birthday week. So I hope I'll most likely talk to everybody the following week. I think if you follow the Hot Tag Wrestling Show, I'll be on sometime next week for our next edition of the Monday Night Wars recap. So you'll have information on that. But if you're strictly baseball here, like the page, for the most part, I'm going to be gone for all next week, and I'll be back the following week. And I'll let everybody know what we're covering then. But until then, have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. If you're traveling, be safe, be extra careful. Don't drink and drive, and just, be grateful and give thanks to all the incredible blessings that you have in your life. For one, every day God wakes me up, I make sure to thank him for the life that I have, for you guys that have made this show and this channel so much fun to be part of. I'm just so incredibly grateful for my kids, and most importantly, my wife, who, I mean, let's be real, gentlemen. I'm allowed to do this show, right? That's how it goes. But without her, this whole ship, that's SHIP. Okay, I didn't say the S word. All right, keep this family friendly. This whole ship sinks without her, and she's everything. And gentlemen out there, if you're in a fun old happy marriage, Go give your wife a nice little pat on the butt and say thank you. It goes a long way. Trust me. But all right, buddy. I'm Chris Francisco. This is the Ring the Bell Philly show. And I hope you all have a phenomenal holiday. God bless you all. See ya.